Well, hello everyone. Good morning, and if you're in the Eastern time zones, good afternoon. This is Simple and Compliant Email Management. I am Rob Dumont from RKO, and I'm presenting today with Scott Burt from Integro. Really quickly on RKO Business Solutions and who we are. We're a Western Canadian-based company with our entire sole focus being on enterprise content management. In our staff, we have over 150,000 hours of ECM experience, which we rely on heavily to implement successful ECM projects. Our guiding principle in all of these projects, above all else, is what we call creating elated end users. The core idea here being that when an organization chooses to implement an enterprise content management solution, they're looking for organizational benefits, but they won't see those benefits unless the users are actually using the system. So we strive above all else to make sure that users see value in the solution and actually go and use it so that the organization actually derives the benefit from it. So I'm going to start with a couple of slides from AIM. AIM is the American Institute for Information and Image Management, and these slides actually come from Jesse Wilkins, who is AIM's thought leader on email management, and these are what email management is not. First and foremost, email management is not, as I try to get the slide to build, email management is not keeping everything. So somewhere in this giant hay bale, there's a needle, and you need to find it. So that's obviously not a great idea. Secondly, email management is not about setting arbitrary size limits. When you do so, you end up making your expensive folks in your organization waste time by deleting stuff. And it tends to be risky as well, because most people, what they do is they'll simply sort by size and delete the biggest emails out of their mailbox. Obviously, doing nothing is not a great idea either, nor is deleting everything. Quite often, emails can be core corporate records, or they keep information that folks want to use in the future. And so what you'll find is that if this policy is implemented, users will find workarounds and increase risk by having emails scattered throughout your organization in strange and wonderful places. So I want to have these core ideas up on the screen for you to read again, because we agree with AIM and we think that they're very, very, very important. In the big book of email management best practices, you're never going to find these ideas, yet all too often we see organizations doing it today. We see organizations saving all email messages, perhaps in a repository or perhaps even in the messaging application like Microsoft Exchange itself. We're still setting arbitrary time limits all over the place for email messages and setting arbitrary mailbox sizes, forcing users into behaviors that are counterproductive to the organization's goals. And this is the funny one, the second to last one. I still see a lot of folks that are saying that email is a record series. It's kind of like saying an Excel spreadsheet is a record series or paper is a record series. If you're not setting paper as a record series in your organization, you probably don't want to do that for email. And we're still seeing a surprising number of folks who are currently doing nothing. Now, all that said, a lot of organizations do realize that there is a lot of value in the information that they are generating and that they are receiving, and we're starting to see a real increase in spend on managing that information, to the point where a recent study found that 6.5% of the revenues of organizations are being spent on deriving insight and managing information. More so, we're seeing that information is growing at an astounding rate. I'm sure you've been hearing the same thing for the past 10, 15 years plus. But I want to draw your attention to the bottom right of this slide, 70%. What we're finding is that as organizations rush to store information and to manage information and to derive insight and intelligence from information, they're doing a poor job of determining what information is actually valuable. And on average, 70% of the information that's stored by organizations is not actually of use and is being unnecessarily retained. And we refer to this as data debris. It's the extra information that gets in the way of the useful information that people really need in order to make intelligent decisions. So I do have a lot of IT managers and CIOs say to me, yeah, but storage is cheap. Relatively speaking, yes, storage is not terribly expensive. It's about $4,000 per terabyte to store information, but that's just storing it. As soon as you have to do something with it, then you start to see the price tags racking up. So for example, if you have to do e-discovery, you're looking at around $18,000 per gigabyte. So that's actually 18 million per terabyte versus the 4K to store. And that's compounded by the fact that data continues to grow at about a 35% annual rate, but IT budgets do not. So the average increase of an IT budget is around 1%. Clearly not enough to keep up with the expanding data and the expanding demands on IT. And not only that, it's an average, which means that for every organization that manages to achieve a 3% budget growth in their IT department, there's somebody else whose budget is actually in decline. So how are organizations starting to tackle this? This is a slide from a large client who's actually in the finance space, who was seeing what we were talking about in the previous slides. Their storage costs were increasing year over year, and it was getting to the point where it was a considerable expense to the organization. So they actually took an initiative and decided to end their keep everything culture and try to clear some of the data debris in their organization. And they had forecasted that their storage was going to increase at the rates you see here, and that by implementing a new culture and getting rid of that keep everything culture, that they would instead see a decrease in the amount of storage. And these numbers have actually borne out. So in the past 2 years, since 2011, instead of seeing the 20% increase in storage costs, they have actually seen about a 25% decrease in what they're actually spending on storage. Now, part of these costs also affect e-discovery. It's important to note that if you have electronic information in your organization, it is discoverable. And so that means if you're over-retaining information, that means that you still need to go and find it and preserve it and collect it and review it whenever you have an e-discovery. And this is compounded by the fact that e-discoveries are required as soon as there's a reasonable threat of litigation. In other words, you don't have to actually be served notice that there's a lawsuit. As soon as you suspect that your organization will be facing a lawsuit, you are bound to actually begin the e-discovery process. So one of our clients actually found that simply by implementing proper retention of email and eliminating the storage of transient email, which adds no value, they're actually saving on e-discovery costs at a rate of about $2.4 million per year. So essentially, if we look at the e-discovery reference model, what they're doing and what the folks who are leading in this space are doing is they're reducing the size of that yellow triangle on the left side of this chart here. They're reducing the volumes that they start with when they begin their e-discovery process so that they reduce the cost of the entire process itself. So how do they do that? Well, what we're doing is we're essentially solving this riddle. 80% of business communications happens via email, yet only 5% of those email actually classify as records. And so the riddle we need to solve is, what are the emails that we need to keep? So this slide is actually from IBM, and it clearly shows what are the reasons that an organization should keep information. The big orange circle there is basically any information that you're bound by regulation or bound by legislation to keep as a record should obviously be kept by the organization. The blue circle, anything that has business utility. This is information that people use to do their job, to make decisions, has key information that actually has business utility and use to folks. That also should be kept by your organization. Just a point of note, we find that in email, those numbers are about reversed. So there's a lot more emails that have business utility than our records, but still, from a keeping information, both are very important. And the third, the green box there is, or green circle there is information which is subject to a legal hold. It's a small amount of information in your organization, typically less than 1%, but also very, very important to keep. Everything else, every other piece of information that you receive, that you generate in your organization, about 70% of the information is actually not necessary. It's unnecessary information. It's data debris, and it gets in the way of people making decisions and doing their job. So how do we handle that from an email perspective? What we prescribe is what's known as the zone approach. Essentially, you separate emails into 3 zones. The first zone, which is the green slice of the pie here, is working content. This is about 15% of the email that you see in your organization, and it's the information that isn't necessarily a record, but is of value to individuals with the organization, and we call it working content. It's emails that really we should make it easy for users to be able to keep, and to be able to keep for a reasonably long time. But not necessarily as long as records, which is the next slice of the pie there, the orange slice. These are about 5% of the emails that you receive. And these are emails that you are bound to keep. You must keep these. And additionally, these emails must have proper retention and governance and proper records management disposal on them. The remainder, about 80%, These are all transient email. Information is conveyed via these emails, maybe FYIs and the like, but they're not something that necessarily should be kept long-term in order to make a decision off of, and they're not necessarily corporate records. And these should be deleted. Additionally, it should be automatic. We don't want to put a burden on the end users to manage these emails. It should be something that just happens and allow users to focus on the 20% or so of emails which are actually of value to the organization. It's probably important to note, your mileage may vary. We do have a client, for example, who after using the system for a couple of years found that only about 4% versus 5% were records, and transient emails were actually only about 10%, or sorry, work in progress, the working content was only about 10% of their emails versus about 15%, and the remainder, 86%, was transient. So it may differ between organizations. So this is my last slide before we flip over to Scott for the demo. And I basically want to answer the question many of you may have regarding how we actually handle these three pie slices of information. For transient information, we really want to dispose of that automatically. We want to put very little burden on the end users. We want to keep it for a reasonably short length of time, half a year. We've seen folks that go with 90 days or 105 days even. And it may differ for different types of information in your mailbox, so calendars and tasks may be kept for a different period. For working information, we want to set a quota. 800 megs seems to be common. We've seen as high as about 2 gigs. And we want to give folks a reasonable amount of time to keep that information available at their fingertips, so 2 years, sometimes 3 years worth of information. And we want to make it very easy for users to designate that an email is of use to them. And then finally, for records, we want to make it quite easy for users to declare and classify that record against the company classification schedule. We want the burden to be roughly equivalent to what people are already doing in their mailboxes today. And then we want to allow for retention and disposition of those records by the Central Records Management Department, but still retain the accessibility by the users. So I'm going to flip over to Scott to actually show this. So thank you very much, and over to Scott.
Excellent, Rob. Good job. Appreciate it. And let's go ahead and click that button there. So how do you make all that come to life that Rob was just talking about? Great concepts, great principles. I think everybody would agree that the vast majority of the email in your enterprise coursing through the networks there is transient in nature and could be deleted. And that holy grail challenge is, how do you decide which few are of business value or records and must be retained, and then the rest can be automatically disposed of? Well, I'm going to show you here an example. This is Integro Email Manager, and in order to make this successful, we needed to be leverage the best of technology and automation and automated classification, combined with the people who know their email the best, that are every day. You've already checked your emails. Everybody knows your email better than software ever will, and we want to make it super, super easy. And using that exception-based model that Rob talked about a bit ago, remember that pie chart with the 80% of the email are being transient and auto-delete those? Well, let's just, by default, every email that comes in should be transient, and because that's the vast majority, and then only the few need to have any action taken on them to make them either a record or a work in progress, and the work in progress is the personal value for, say, 2 years. So how do we do that? So first off, we make it really easy. We integrate it tightly into the mail client. We're showing Outlook here. If you're a Lotus user, ask Rob later, and we'll demo you the Lotus interface for doing all the same things. And there are 4 primary ways that the end users, or the email that comes in, gets declared as records. So, and I'm going to show you those 4. Those 4 are automatically done through contextual analysis of the email. Additionally, there's in place, so in your inbox directly or within another folder, user can take action on individual or multiple emails at once. On send, and with folders that the user is in control of. So let's show you. So you'll see here, talking about that tight integration, it looks just like Outlook. You'll see your inbox here. Things you're going to notice are a little bit different. You'll see some icons that are different here. Here's a couple of them, a star and red check mark showing up here. And then there's this designation pane, and you'll see if I slide that out, this is the user interface that is common throughout for the quick and easy declaration of email. So by default, emails like this one here are not designated, so it's just got the normal Outlook icons. If it's a work in progress, I'll click on it there, the icon changes, and that means that now that email is going to live for 2 years instead of just say 6 months. So that means November 19th of 2015, that email will be deleted by the system automatically. And I can just see it's some testimonials we just want to keep around for future reference, but it's not a record, but it was I wanted it for future access and reference, and I like to keep it in my email. So just by doing that, boom, work in progress. It's got a new icon, and that's what's going to happen to it there. Then a record is the third type. So let's just choose one here for records here. Here's one here about a bond offering. It didn't get auto-classified, so let's go ahead and declare it as a record. I see that me and my job function, there might be 150 or 200 records categories in our company, but only 3 of them really matter to me. I'm a manager, so I've got some HR stuff, some IT projects I work on, and accounting and finance. Well, this one here is for an accounting and finance role of mine. I just click on it once. So one click, it declared it as a record to records category number 11 in this case, and it got a blue check mark being a record. So pretty cool. That wasn't hard. I'm just going through my day, looking at my email, and if I see an important one, boom, just flag it as a record. Now we'll do several here in this demo in the next 5 minutes, but keep in mind that over the course of a week, you probably won't do as many as I do in this 5-minute demo here. So let's look down here at this star and check mark one. So first off, this one right here, that's obviously not a record. It was just more some water cooler kind of a chat here. And we can look over here. I don't need to do anything to it. It's already not designated. I can leave it be. It'll be deleted, or delete it myself. But notice that the 3 records categories offered are these 3 right here, 11, 12, and 13. Well, if I click on this one here for this financial planning one, talking about a financial plan, etc. Look here, the computer, Smart Assist in this case, calculated a 99.3% likelihood that this email with this content belongs to the records category number 11, accounting and finance, and it already went ahead and declared it as a record to that records category. I need not do anything. If it was wrong, I could change it. That has to do with that human oversight, but no action required by me. Pretty darn cool. Now this one here, let's look at this one here, customer demo. It's saying, hey, can you do a demo for me on December 2nd? And for whatever reason, that got picked up as potentially for sales, which I can see, customer demo, sales category, but it's not a demo, and I'm just going to leave it be, and it'll be deleted, or I can just go ahead and delete it. If I wanted to take the suggestion, in fact, let's go up and look at this one. This one has a star too. If I click on that one, I can see here's an updated status report. If I could open it up, you'll see a whole project plan for the customer, and I might say, well, yeah, actually that is sales related, and I can just take the records category option there. It gave it a check mark, a blue one, meaning I did it, not the computer. So I've shown you now auto classification, and I've shown you declare in place in my inbox here. Let's show a couple more. If I make a new message, okay, in this case I'm using a demo account. Let's see, is it coming up? There we go. I'm using a demo account for our security personnel here. I'm going to send this to, well, myself in this case because I'm doing a demo here, and I've got a few other people on my team. Let's pretend I put 20 people in there, and this is an important email, approval, whatever the case might be. It's a record. It's a record. So as I send it, look at there, I've got that same pane there. I can just leave it open or leave it closed. It's kind of handy just to have it open. I can reach out and just, with one click again, declare it as a record. So now when I send that, it's already going to get saved as a record and locked down right in my Exchange and Outlook here. And all of the recipients will get it, and it'll already have a yellow check mark telling them that the sender already declared it as a record. I don't need to worry about it. I can, it looks important because it's declared as a record. I can go look at it, read it. But when I'm done, I can just go ahead and delete it because I've got a convenience copy. The official one is in the sender's mailbox. And by the way, we can manage the records right in place in the mail system, or you can combine this with the power of a enterprise content management system like FileNet from IBM, and it can pick it up and put it into that records management system, or another one, Documentum, say. Okay, we've shown in place, auto declare, on send. Let's talk about folders. So over here, I'm organized. I've got my IT projects, accounting stuff, staff communications, and customer files. If I want to just take an email, let's say that this email from Rob here is relative to an IT project on the Exchange project we're working on. I can just drag it over here and drop it. And if I go look in my folder called Exchange Upgrade, there's that email from Rob Dumont, slides for today, and it was already declared as a record with a blue check mark, and it went into the records category for IT. Hey, that's pretty cool. So for the, the pilers might want to do it in their inbox. The filers have all their folders organized over here. Just drag and drop, and it will be taken care of. And the cool thing is the users are in control. They can rename, create folders, rename folders. Let's call this one here email project. And instead of here, I want to put it, I don't know, underneath the inbox. Now let's go back to the inbox here. Oops. Let's go back to the inbox here, and I'll just grab an email. Here's another one from Rob. It says, by the way, is it snowing? It's sunny in Vancouver. That's cool. Drag and drop into my folder that I just renamed and moved. I'll go back over here and look. Here's his email about being sunny in Vancouver. And you can see that it was all still declared as a record for information technology. So again, the users, they're not getting a folder structure forced upon them by the records department, and they're much happier, higher acceptance. Okay, I got two more things to show you, and then we got a few minutes for questions. So when an employee turns on Outlook for the morning, it pops up with a dashboard, and it says, hey, Scott, by the way, or Ferris, I guess, is my example here. Tonight we're going to delete, usually it's about 70 emails. This one's turned off at the moment of deletions. 70 or 80 emails are going to get deleted today. How many are this week, this month? So if I'm going to be traveling for a week at a conference, I can just click on this and go look. And here's all the emails that are either 6 months old or 2 years old, and decide if I want to save any of them from being deleted. So that was one of them, and I think I'll stop here and we'll take questions. There's a lot more to show you, but we can do that another day.
I think, Scott, one of the questions that I got from a couple folks who actually couldn't make it today, I did get a couple of people who actually specifically asked about Lotus Notes. Obviously, we can handle Lotus Notes, and maybe is there anything in particular that you think stands out as something that's different in Lotus Notes in your mind that is worth bringing up?
So good question. Our first product was actually based on Lotus Notes. So we're longtime Lotus Notes experts, and a lot of customers running Lotus Notes for lots of users. We've got one customer with 24,000 employees, and they use this every day, all baked into Lotus Notes. So it works great. The user interface is just a little bit different, but all the key functionality is exactly the same.
And the key concepts are still there. So the idea of eliminating the burden and eliminating the data debris is still there.
Yep. And that customer I just mentioned a moment ago, they'll be speaking at the MER conference this year about their experience, which is the Managing Electronic Records. And 24,000 users, they delete about 12 terabytes a year, and they have that 2+ million in savings just in e-discovery. So pretty cool.
Okay.
I see a question just came up for Office 360, Microsoft Office 365. Sorry, Rob, I think you were going to read it there. And yes, we do support Office 365. It was a quick one, so I'll just take it.
There's also a question just about that, which was one of the folks on the line says that they work on a legal team and they have thousands of case folders in their mailboxes, and they're wondering if it would still work in such an instance.
It does, and your case folders, it becomes basically an event-based part of the file plan, and the only folders that show up for an end user are the cases that they're working on. So it's personalized, the list, just like the records categories. Even if you have thousands of cases across a large law firm, any one attorney might have, I don't know, 5, 10, 20, not often more than a lot more than that. So you have a subset, and it absolutely works. And then you can do the retention based upon keep it for X amount of years after the case is closed.
Excellent, thank you. We do have another question here. Obviously, we would like that everybody uses the IBM repository for storing their email, but there's a question here as to whether Integro supports non-IBM repositories.
It does, and so each one needs to be addressed individually, because sometimes there's capabilities of the various products, but there's certainly no reason why it wouldn't support every other product. So we've worked with some of them and not yet all of them, but we tag the messages. Again, we can manage it in place, and the goal here is that only the records go into the repository. It's none of this journaling to save every email ever sent and received in a company, because that's just silly unless you're regulated to do that. And so yes, we can take the records out and stage them, and then they can be ingested with all the metadata into other records management software systems.
We have no other questions at this time, and we've actually hit the 10:30 mark here in Pacific time. So I think with that, what we'll do is we'll sign off the webinar. If you do have any further questions, you do have my contact details. Please do reach out. And so thank you very much for attending today, and wish you all the best and a great day.